Welcome to This Explainer. Today, we're diving headfirst into a really dark, thrilling mystery, one that asks some pretty heavy questions about destiny, choice, and reality itself. And as we explore this story, pay attention to the cinematic color grading of this world. We're going to transition from the vibrant, everyday colors of reality straight into these cold, clinical blues and eventually end up in fiery, chaotic oranges that perfectly match the emotional arc of the characters. It's a wild ride, so let's just get right into it.
So I want you to take a second and really think about this question. What if reading your future erased someone else's? Like, what if your absolute certainty came at the direct cost of someone else's existence? Right? It's a terrifying thought. And it's the exact dilemma facing our main guy, Ethan. He's just a regular 23-year-old archivist working the night shift at this completely ordinary old railway station. But then, on one rainy evening, Ethan sees something literally impossible. He watches his passengers simply vanish. They just walk right through a solid brick wall. Driven by, pure curiosity, he follows them through the masonry, stepping out of our normal world and into something entirely different.
And where he ends up is known as the Library of Tomorrow. It is an endless underground vault. It contains a specific book for every single living person, and that book dictates their exact, unchangeable future. The architecture down here just stretches on forever. There are no clocks anywhere, no windows. The entire place is bathed in this incredibly moody, pale blue cinematic glow. It feels absolutely freezing, timeless, and totally isolated from the surface world. And waiting there is an elderly librarian who welcomes Ethan to this bizarre reality where your entire life script is just sitting on a shelf.
Okay, let's break down the horrifying mechanics of how this place actually works. The golden rule of the library is chilling. The future changes every time someone reads it. Ethan watches these visitors looking up their individual books, and the reactions are all over the place. I mean, some people read their pages and just weep with joy. Others read their futures and literally scream in pure terror. But then, and this is the crazy part, Ethan watches one man quietly put his book down, and before the guy even reaches the exit door, he just vanishes from existence. Poof! Completely gone. Millions. That is the true cost of this place. The elderly librarian finally breaks it down for Ethan, explaining the grim reality behind this pale blue vault. You see, knowledge here can't just be created out of thin air. It has to be borrowed. Every single time someone learns their future, a random stranger somewhere out in the real world loses a day from their own future. So when you add it all up, millions of missing tomorrows. Entire lifetimes have been stolen piece by piece from random people just to build this impossible library. Every prediction has a victim. It's a brutal zero-sum game of human destiny. All right, let's move right into our next section, the girl without a book. Because every rigid system eventually hits a glitch, right? Ethan meets this mysterious girl named Mira, and she is a walking paradox. First off, she doesn't have a book. She has no past, no future, zero record anywhere in this massive archive. The librarians are actually terrified of her. They only ever whisper about her, calling her the blank page. And why? Well, Mira claims that decades ago, she actually escaped from inside an unfinished book. Now, if she's telling the truth, that implies something incredibly unsettling for these librarians. It means stories themselves can become alive. Fiction can literally bleed right into reality. So Mira shows Ethan this forbidden staircase that goes even deeper underground. And as they descend, leaving the main floor behind, you can see the cinematic lighting of our story completely shift. We move away from that clinical, pale blue glow and descend into the deepest, pitch-black shadows. Absolutely no librarian is allowed down here. They are walking straight into the library's darkest secret. Down in the dark, they stumble upon a literal graveyard of unfinished universes. It's just endless shelves packed with entire civilizations that only exist because some author imagined them for a few pages, got writer's block, and gave up. These abandoned worlds are just frozen in silence. Ethan and Mira look closely and see children waiting forever for heroes who are never going to show up. They see kings locked in eternal bloody wars simply because the author never bothered to write an ending. They're just trapped in time forever. It's heartbreaking.
And this brings us to our next major section, the greatest lie. Finding these unfinished universes forces a massive confrontation. The head librarian is finally backed into a corner and drops this absolute bombshell. The library does not predict tomorrow, it writes tomorrow. Just let that sink in for a second. This place isn't an archive at all. It's a control room. Human history has been edited thousands of times.
Wars have been erased, sure, but entire empires and innocent families have been completely overwritten too. And the scariest part? The librarians are the only ones who remember the previous versions of reality. They are literally playing God.
So we have our ultimate philosophical showdown. On one side, you have the librarians. They want a controlled, written, heavily edited reality. They're offering safety, but it costs you your absolute freedom. On the other side, you've got Mira. She is fighting tooth and nail for the chaos of an unwritten free future for every single person. I mean, think about it for yourself. Would you rather have the suffocating safety of a pre-written destiny or the dangerous, unpredictable freedom of a completely unwritten tomorrow?
Well, Mira makes her choice. She decides that everyone deserves an unwritten future. So she starts a rebellion. She starts burning the books. And visually, this is where the aesthetic completely flips. That stark, cold, clinical blue of the library is violently shattered by these bright, intense, fiery oranges and reds. The freezing static energy of the archive is just totally engulfed by the chaotic warmth of the fire. And it sparks absolute chaos. As the pages burn, thousands of possible futures are freed all at once. But freedom is messy, right? Reality instantly becomes violently unstable. Up on the surface, cities are literally flickering in and out of existence. People are suddenly remembering completely different childhoods. The world starts fracturing into competing timelines. Best friends suddenly turn into complete strangers as these different versions of reality crash and bleed together. The whole system is collapsing.
Which leads us directly into our final section, the final shelf.
Right in the middle of this collapsing world, Ethan runs through the smoke and finds one last shelf entirely untouched by the fire. And sitting there is a single book called The Reader. Now, this isn't a normal book. It details the exact events happening to Ethan right in that very second. Every single word he reads immediately becomes reality. It's the ultimate tool of control. But here's where the tension just redlines. Ethan flips to the current moment and sees that the very last page is completely blank. The timeline has caught up. The head librarian isn't writing anymore, which means for the literal first time in human history, tomorrow is unwritten. Ethan is holding the power to write whatever future he wants. He could fix the timelines. He could make himself a king. He could even restore that cold, pale blue safety of the old library. But he doesn't. He makes a massive choice. Ethan just closes the book. Forever. He totally refuses to play God. And the second that cover shuts, the entire impossible library just crumbles into dust all around them. As the dust settles, all that cinematic tension finally gives way to this really warm, hopeful dawn. First off, all those stolen tomorrows that were used to build the library, they rush back to their rightful owners. The next morning, billions of people wake up feeling strangely hopeful, having absolutely no idea why. And deep down beneath that old train station, all that's left of this massive, oppressive archive is just one single empty bookshelf, just sitting there in the dark, waiting for a brand new story. And I think that leaves us with this incredible realization. A life without surprise may be safe, but it is never truly lived. You know, the librarians really thought they were doing us a favor by editing out all the pain and uncertainty. But by doing that, they stripped away the exact thing that makes life worth living. The real value of our future is that we don't know what's going to happen. The blank page isn't something to be terrified of. It's the whole point. It's something to embrace. So as we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with this to chew on. The editing room is gone. Those cold blue lights are off for good. The future is entirely back in our own hands. What story will humanity write together, now that the pages are finally blank? And maybe more importantly, what are you going to do with your unwritten tomorrow? Thanks so much for joining me to explore this. Keep asking the big questions, and I'll catch you next time.